This book is a fantasy adventure story like Lord of the Rings. A group of heroes has to cross a magical land filled with monsters and dangers. Only this book is written by Rowley. So the magical creatures tend to be things like narwhals and the Little Mermaid, but not the Disney one.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
Roland is a very good boy who tries to make his parents happy by wearing a helmet and doing his chores. And he's so brave that he only sometimes has to sleep in his parents' bed at night. Roland receives the call to adventure when the fearsome white warlock kidnaps his mom. I like Rowley's story. I think this book would be funny and entertaining enough if it was just Rowley's story. But there is a little more. At the end of every chapter, Rowley pauses the story and he shares Greg's reaction. Greg says things like, Roland has silly hair, and you can't have a villain with ice powers, that's been done a million times. Roland teams up with his best friend Garg the Barbarian, who is basically Greg with giant muscles. So he's nothing like Greg then. They go to a nearby village where they help other people do chores. That's so nice of them. Greg says, this story doesn't need chores, it needs monsters. Rowley's not so sure because he doesn't want fighting and violence in his story. He'd rather have helpful creatures who do things like teach math to young children. Rowley introduces some trolls and pixies. I'm not sure if he's copying the movie Trolls. There are large, smelly trolls that eat pixies, while the pixies are kind of bullies who insult the trolls and dump garbage on them. Roland negotiates a peace treaty. All the creatures agree to be nice to each other, and they will recycle instead of making garbage. Greg says they need famous characters like Hercules or the Wizard of Oz. This leads to a pretty good section where Roland goes into a cave that's filled with statues of famous book characters. Sherlock Holmes appears and says it's Medusa's cave. Medusa turned everyone to stone. Roland tries to defeat Medusa with a mirror, while she tries to defeat him with a butt joke. Medusa has snakes for hair. Roland gives her some no tears baby shampoo. It's so nice and soft that the snakes are happy, and Medusa is now friendly. Roland goes to a nearby swamp. A one-eyed wizard gives him some backstory on the White Warlock. Greg thinks this is a boring chapter, but that's okay, because you need a boring part in every movie, so people can leave the theater to use the bathroom and get snacks without missing anything. Greg also says the story needs a girl character. So when the one-eyed wizard undoes Medusa's statue spell, they get a new traveling companion, Shyvana the elf archer, who's also a thief. Shyvana is pretty awesome. Greg thinks she should fall in love with his character, but Rowley doesn't like that idea so much, because he was kind of hoping she'd fall in love with his character. As funny as a Greg-Rowley love triangle could be, I like how Rowley insists it's okay for boys and girls to be friends with no romance. Rowley introduces a boyfriend for Shyvana, Kristoff, the moody vampire teenager. Good choice, Rowley. I have read multiple books with a character like that. Kristoff is also a werewolf, so he's probably going to be the most popular character of the book. Roland's a little jealous over how Shyvana likes Kristoff so much. Plot twist, Shyvana steals the map and leaves everyone lost. Greg forces Rowley to kill a character because someone always dies in stories like these. Rowley reluctantly decides to kill Lefty, a giant floating hand that the wizard summoned. Lefty is dead for one paragraph. Then the wizard summons another giant floating hand. This one is a righty. That makes it a totally different character. Roland plays his flute by a river, which gets the attention of the Little Mermaid. She and her narwhal friends take the group to the White Warlock's ice fortress. Rowley thinks the narwhals are cool and they should be on the book's cover. Humorously, Greg convinces him to have a cover with a warrior seahorse, even if there's no warrior seahorse in the story. Roland enters the villain's ice fortress. Plot twist, the White Warlock is really Santa Claus! Shyvana is one of his helpful elves. The villain is actually the one-eyed wizard, who is Santa's brother. He's jealous of Santa, because Santa got the good holiday, while he was stuck with Flag Day, the boring holiday that nobody cares about. There's a big battle, and just when it looks like our heroes will lose, Roland's mom arrives on a warrior seahorse. She saves everyone. Way to go, Mom! It turns out Roland's sword has the power to turn people nice. He uses it on the villain. There's a big party where they all get presents, except Roland. He gets renamed Roland the Kind, which isn't as good as a present, even though Greg insists you can trademark the idea of being kind to make millions of dollars in books and movies. The end. Post-book follow-up. I liked this book way more than the previous one. Greg doesn't bully Rowley in this book. Greg's criticisms of the story are mostly toned down. Several Greg sections start with him saying what he likes about the book, before going into what he dislikes. Several of his criticisms don't sting, because they get redirected into a different topic, like movie posters or toy sales. Also, Greg never gets mad when Rowley ignores his suggestions. Greg wanted Shyvana to fall in love with his character. When that didn't happen, Greg wasn't mad. So, Greg was much better in this book. He could have been a mean bully the entire time, like the previous book. No. Here, he's much nicer. It's more in character for Rowley to think of Greg as a nice, helpful friend, when I'm sure the truth is that Greg isn't too thrilled about being forced to read Rowley's adventure story. My favorite character of the book is Stephen, who is half man and half cow. The joke is that he never talks or does anything important, but he's still in most of the pictures. He's so funny looking. I love him. Chapter 9 stands out as a little odd because it has a bunch of fast-paced action scenes. Our heroes go through 4 deadly situations back to back, with only a minor break to drink milk. Maybe this chapter should have been prefaced with Greg saying the story needs more action, because then the joke would be Rowley condensed 50 pages of action into one chapter. Overall, I like this book a lot more than the previous one. It was funnier, and the jokes were less mean-spirited. Rowley writes a fantasy novel doesn't sound like the best idea for a wimpy kid spin-off, but it was great. I would love to see Rowley tackle other genres, and I guess a lot of other readers felt the same way, because Rowley's next book is a collection of ghost stories. I give Rowley Jefferson's awesome friendly adventure a 9 out of 10. I don't think they're going to make a movie based on this book, but if they did, I would totally watch it.